Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as what if Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
Says Jiraiya as he rubs the back of his head with a sigh. Sometime later Jiraiya meets up with his students, finds himself surprised not just because they found the document but the shape his students are in. I take it you hit a few bumps too? Asked the aged man. The two their head agreement. Yeah, that's the understatement of the year, thought Tamari. She turns to Naruto who dogs into his jumpsuit taking out a syringe. Their sensei raised an eyebrow at this. A Junin we fought was about to inject himself before Tamari-chan and I took the bastard out. Says Naruto with a wide grins on his face. The fan user's cheeks becomes pink thanks to Naruto's praise. Jiraiya grins at this and have his students with a smug smirk. He snickers at the two. Ooh, is it Tamari-chan now, You sure move fast, brat. Giggled Jiraiya in a perverted manner. He could already smell inspiration for his novel. Whatever thoughts for his smut novel were banished as Jiraiya is hit by Tamari's and Naruto's weapon. Get your head of the gutter, quit being a perv. Yelled the two, glaring at him, daring the seasoned ninja to continue with his perverted ways. Especially after dealing with Ryoga, neither of the two were in no mood to deal with their sensei's usual perverted ways. Anyways, when Naruto used his Kusarigama and the enemy went down, we thought we was down, but he had another surprise. But he got full of himself, allowing Naruto to cut his hand off and myself to finish the job, but he believed whatever was in it will give him a complete edge over us, says Tamari. It didn't take a genius to realize something else had happened. Jiraiya knew this wasn't the place, not time to ask. But it seemed whatever they want to not only forced Naruto to take his first kill. After all, the poison covering the Kusarigama is highly poisonous, but it seemed whatever the two went through had also brought them closer together. While teasing the two does sound like fun, they were still on a mission. Oh, well, I'll just find out what happened later, thought Jiraiya. He then summons a small toad and husbands him the documents and the syringe. Give these to Haim-chan, ordered the Sanin. The small toads nods his head and shots a curious gaze at the syringe. The kids retrieved it from the enemy, might be some kind of drug, says Jiraiya. When dealing with Orochimaru, you never what you're truly dealing with. Sure thing, Jiraiya, says the small toad. It soon vanished in a puff of smoke. Now let's get you to match up. After all, not everyone can heal fast, said Jiraiya, but this was more directed to Naruto. 2 days later, Tamari lowers her fans as Naruto lower his on the desert. Kunoichi turns to Jiraiya, who's writing in a small notebook but doesn't like the one he uses for his Ika Ika series. Have you got a message from my village? Asked Tamari. From those 2 days they had already got pay and a congratulations from Konoha, but she hasn't heard back from her home. Not yet, but I should be expecting a message from them any day now, says Jiraiya. He watches as she smiles at this, no doubt missing her brothers. Sure, her Kankuro weren't close to Gaara because of his former psychotic persona, but even back then she loves her brother. Get Eki Senin, remember when you and Toad Boss you used that big fire jutsu? Asked Naruto. Jiraiya knew which jutsu he was talking about. I was thinking of doing that, but with a poison fog, says Naruto. Jiraiya grins at this while Tamari looks unimpressed. That's not a bad idea, kid. I was waiting till much later, but no time like the present, says his. He then turns to the female blonde. And you'll also be doing cooperation ninjutsu. We can work with both Toads and Weasel, says Jiraiya, causing both to smile. But first I watched to teach you a seal, says Jiraiya. Really, what kind of seal? Asked Naruto. The fire sealing method, Fuka-hoin. It's a seal that allows you to deal away any fire ninjutsu, even Itachi's Amaterasu, said Jiraiya. Amaterasu. What's that? Asked Naruto. It's the next step of the Mangekyo Sharingan. The only way to achieve it is to kill yourself, best friend, or a family member dying, says Jiraiya. Tamari looks on in disgust while Naruto doesn't look too happy either. In exchange of such committed also said person eyes to evolve every Uchiha who'd unlocked their own unique ability. Shisui Itachi's best friend can use Koto Amatsukami as a dojutsu that casts a powerful yet subtle mind-controlling genjutsu on the target. The ninjutsu is so powerful you wouldn't even know it or aware you are being controlled. You believe each action you took was of your own choosing, says Jiraiya. It was safe to say neither then wanted to go up against someone like Shisui. Itachi's Mangekyu have gave him the Tsukuyomi. It traps them in an illusion of his design. Through his unprecedented ability to alter targets' perception of time, he uses Tsukuyomi to subject victims to days' worth of torture in a matter of seconds, and it gave him the Amaterasu, a technique that allows him to command black flames. Once created, the flames will not stop burning until their target is completely incinerated. The flames cannot be extinguished with water, the passage of time, or any other normal methods. Only the user can put the flames out, explained Jiraiya. Which is why it's important you to learn the Fuka Hoin. When we meet up with Itachi and his blue friend, you'll have a way to deal with Amaterasu. Now watch carefully, I'm going to show you the hand signs, says Jiraiya. He uses the hand signs of rat, bird, technique-specific seal, tiger. He then begins to show them the sealing formula. He watches as both write the sealing formula and activate the scroll. He then fires a lower-level fire jutsu and watches as both scrolls seal away the small flames. Naruto with a huge grin jumps around in excitement while Temari smiles to herself at learning something new. Now I'll be back. I need to head back to Mount Myoboku to see if they have any toads that specialize in poison. Use this time to relax and take a break. You two need it, says Jiraiya. He then reversed summoned himself, heading back to the home of the toads. Temari turns and sees Naruto reading the Fuinjutsu book and chuckles at this, even giving time to relax. The blonde still trying to improve himself. Naruto, I know we never talked about it, but seeing as we're alone, I think it's important we have to discuss something, says Temari. Naruto quickly becomes stiff and his went wide. Crap. That's right in front of her, thought a frantic Naruto. He then blushes, remembering the hug and kiss. It was the rare for him getting a hug from a girl and kiss. Well, he got a kiss from the Snow Daimyo Koyuki, but he was unconscious, and the only type of affection he received from a girl his age is Sakura's fist. It also helped that Temari was far more cute than Sakura. Seeing he was still paying attention to her, she continues on, so that red chakra was Kyuubi's right? Asked Temari. He just nods his head. Can you control it? Asked Temari. I've only went up to 2 tails so far. I'm still in control, says Naruto. She smiles at this. Well, I'm happy you'd use it, says the female blonde. Really you are? Asked a shocked Naruto. She nods her head and smiles at the Uzumaki and places his hand on her shoulder. Well, yeah, if you hadn't, I'd rather not think about. I'm not used to saying this, but, thank you. Naruto-kun, says a blushing Temari. Naruto cheeks become a deep scarlet. Cute, blurted Naruto. Temari blushes. She then gains a nervous smile and mutters a thank you. I'm just happy you're safe, Temari-chan. I won't let anything to my precious people, says Naruto. She smiles even brighter at this. Why you think I'm precious? Asked Temari. He flashed her one of his famous grin. Sure, of course. I wouldn't ask for another partner. I mean, you're so cool, amazing, and smart. You're defiantly the coolest girl I've met. You're even more cuter than Sakura and Ino. Exclaimed Naruto. Feeling the affect of the infamous Uzumaki grin made the Sand Kunoichi heart skip a few beats. Sure, many people have commented her skills, but no boy had ever commented on her looks. She leans in and kissed his whiskered cheek. That's for saving myself and for saving my brother. Just so you know that Sakura girl is an idiot for chasing Sasuke, says Temari, leaving Naruto frozen, and no doubt his own heartbeat skip a few beats. He even forgot to breathe for a few seconds. The two smile at each other. The two quickly jump back as Jiraiya had returned with another toad. He looks at the two, noticing Naruto as a blushing mess while Temari tries to put on a strong face. Hey, these brats are gold. Ahaha. The next ICHA series will write itself thanks to these two brats, thought Jiraiya. This is Gamakaso, the son of Fukasaku and Shima. You meet him his parents later. He specializes in poison. His poison ninjutsu is considered the best, says Naruto. Gamakaso, his size is comparable to that of a human's. though he is noted to being slightly bigger than the average male. His skin color is mahogany brown, and effect transcribed through the combination of his mother's purple skin color and his father's green skin color respectively. Unlike Fukasaku, however, he does not possess any noticeable facial hair. His eyes also bear striking resemblance to his father's, bright yellow in color with a noticeable black rectangular shape swimming in the center. A trait that displays his mastery over the element of senjutsu. He also coats his lips in a thick coating of lipstick, utilizing the dark purple shade of his mother, Shima. He wears an elongated black cloaks that extend past the wearer's own knees. Beneath the dark cloak lies Gamakaso's true attire, comprised of a black kimono and complete with a pair of noble shinobi sandals. A white obi sash is tied around his waist, holding together his set of stone katana. The large road bows at Naruto. "It is an honor to meet you, Naruto-san," says Gamakaso. Naruto then gets the "finally this toad was a big deal" and gives the large road a bow too. "Nice to meet you," says Naruto. After all, it probably wouldn't do him any good pissing this toad off. He has a feeling this toad is far more stronger Gamabunta. He also didn't want to test Gamakaso's temper, especially if it was anything like Gamabunta's temper. Gamakaso smirks at Jiraiya. "Well, the boy has more respect than you, Jiraiya, and he seems far more promising." Mock the human size, causing Jiraiya to pour at the son of the toad sage. This causes Naruto to snicker at Jiraiya. The large toad then turns to Naruto, and a member of the Uzumaki clan. "You know how to pick your students," exclaimed the smirking toad. "You know about the Uzumaki clan," exclaimed the surprised Naruto. Ever since he left Konoha, he still hasn't found any scrolls of the Uzumaki, which greatly disappointed. Gamakaso chuckles at Naruto, causing Naruto's own temper to flare up. Everyone knows who the Uzumaki clan, they along with the Senju and Uchiha clans, were the most strongest clan in the world. Exclaims Gamakaso. Naruto quickly glares at Jiraiya, who quickly looked the other way, whistling. No reason to be angry at Jiraiya. It was the Hokage's orders. Many people would kill and kidnap to get their hands on a Uzumaki. "I have an idea. If you impress me, I'll tell you what I know and I'll teach you a jutsu, deal?" asked Gamakaso. He knew it was against the Hokage's border, but he didn't really care. Naruto looked at Gamakaso in confusion before grinning to himself. "Whatever it is, I'm ready," says Naruto, punching his palm. "I hope so. If you can force me to use one ninjutsu, I'll hold up on my promise," says Gamakaso, pulling out both of his stone swords. "Now let's see what you got, son of Minato," thought the sage toad. Naruto grins widely at the toad. He charges at Gamakaso with his Kusarigama. Gamakaso swipes Naruto, who ducks low. He then throws a smoke bomb his face. Naruto slams an ad kick on him, but Gamakaso uses the flat side of his sword to push him back. The blonde teen then makes a dozen clones, but this didn't away him. To Naruto's surprise, Gamakaso destroys each of the clones with his large swords in a matter of seconds, but with destroying each clone caused a large smoke screen. As it clears up, Naruto comes crashing down with a Rasengan. Gamakaso uses his tongue to wrap itself around Naruto's waist and tosses him to the side. "You'll have to do better than that," exclaimed Gamakaso. He then appears in front of Naruto and elbows him in his head, sending him to the ground. Naruto quickly jumps back, nearly avoiding being crushed, but Gamakaso picks Naruto up by the foot with his tongue and roses him to the side. The Toda charges Naruto, hitting him in the gut with his foot, causing Naruto gasping for air. Naruto grits his teeth in pain and unleashes a volley of wind blades. Gamakaso used the blunt side to take the damage. The large road appears in front of him and slams the sword down. Naruto quickly substitutes himself with a piece of free bark. Gamakaso looks everywhere with a grin. "Cheeky brat," exclaimed Gamakaso. He punches his hand through the ground, removing Naruto from the ground. The blonde child then grins, confusing him. He then notices a paper bomb attached to him. He exploded. Gamakaso eyes widened as he feel 10 shadows above him. He looks up, seeing down clones, each with their own Rasengan. Gamakaso then throws his stone sword, destroying each clone. He then uses his tongue to literally gut punch Naruto, sending him falling to the ground, grinning at the groaning Naruto, who lost his breath. "Yo, Naruto, you dead?" asked Gamakaso. "Not dead. Just need to get up," groaned Naruto. Gamakaso picks his sword up and stands into the group and sends rocks at him. Well, get up faster, says Gamakaso. He then hits more rocks, sending them at him. Naruto then clasps his hands together. Wind release, aerial wall technique, futon, Kuchu Kabe no Jutsu, exclaims Naruto. The wind blast destroy the rocks. Gamakaso then uses his sword to block the attack. It pushes him back. Gamakaso jumps high in the air. He then wraps his tongue around Naruto, but the blonde Uzumaki swings his sickle and wraps the chain around his left arm and face. Gamakaso then uses his right hand to attack him, but a clone rises from the ground wrapping a chain around his forearm. The Naruto in front of him then uses the chain to trap his arm, pulling him tightly. The two clones tug a few more times, bringing him to the ground. A few other Narutos rise from the ground, pinning his other limbs with a chain sickle. 5 Naruto then charge at him with a Rasengan. Others came at him with their Kusarigama and channels wind nature through the blade, while 2 other clones release a volley of wind slashes. Gamakaso puffs out his cheeks and channels water nature through himself. Water release, gunshot Sweden, Teppadama, exclaimed Gamakaso, firing a giant water projectile that rivals the size of Gamabunta's own Teppadama. The real Naruto and his clones are then sent flying, sending the poor boy to the tree. I guess you brat. Gamabunta did say you have lazy luck, says Gamakaso. Jiraiya laughs loudly. You don't know the half of it. But never against the brat, says Jiraiya. He's seen Naruto go through and beating the odds. He also looks Naruto with pride. Before coming on the training trip, he would just send as many clones as possible, and now he's actually has them coordinated. Naruto grins on pain as the very ground felt like it was ringing. He then looks and sees a smirking Gamakaso. Told ya olvido it. Naruto Uzumaki never give dadbeo. Grins Naruto. If you have that much energy, then you can use it to train. And I did promise to tell you about the Uzumaki clan. Just like the Uchiha clan has many temples, so does the Uzumaki clan, came containing ancient scrolls and sacred artifacts. Both Ashina and Mito were the strongest of the clan. Ashina was a master swordsman, Funijutsu master, and his ninjutsu was powerful and a master in water release, and Mito was the Hokage's wife and fought with him against Madara. Her skill in Fuinjutsu is so powerful she'd seal the 9 tails in herself. She was skilled in medical ninjutsu, she had chakra chains which can even contain a biju, and she talented in both fire and water release, says Gamakaso. Naruto smiles at this. With Jiraiya training him in Fuinjutsu, he was already on his way, becoming close to his fallen clan, but he another goal to retrieve any Uzumaki artifacts he finds. Now, that's out of the way, let's get to training. We'll be creating a water ninjutsu and some poison ninjutsu. I'll be teaching you water release, high-pressured impact, Sweden, Kotsu. This technique allows the user to create a spiral of water on both hands of the user and fires it with great speed, dealing a great amount of damage to the enemy. And poison mist, Dokugiri. This allows you to create a poisonous mist, but together it makes water release. Poison water bomb, Sweden, Dokuden, said Gamakaso. Naruto is then literally bouncing on his feet. While Gamakaso was busy with training Naruto, Jiraiya and Kamatari, the two decided Tamari should try learning at least one defensive ninjutsu. Jiraiya advises she learns a Sotone, and the summoner agreed. After all, she was the daughter of Rasa, so the chances of her having his affinity over earth and water release was pretty high. Jiraiya decided to teach her earth release, Dust Storm Doden, Saginarishi, which requires the use of the hand signs of monkey, ram, snake, hands clapped together. This ability allows the user to slams their hands on the ground, generating a large amount of soil, which is launched and manipulated towards the opponent as a fast wave with crushing force. While Kamatari plans to teach her the violent whirlwind, Resenpu, the user produces a powerful stream of wind from their mouth. Tamari pants heavily as she sends a small layer of soil. She rolled the sweat from her forehead while she was getting tired of practicing the Doden ninjutsu. This is something to help her and Naruto. She then blushes, remembering the kiss she gave him. Maybe it was the best of the moment, but she did meant what she said about Sakura. Sure, Sasuke was cute, but he was traitor and had caused his classmates to be put in the hospital. Hell, they were lucky to be alive. Except for Shikamaru, all head has a broken finger, while the others were much different. She remembers Gaara telling her about Kimamaru and was surprised there was yet another person capable of challenging her brother, but it seems like ever since Rock Lee had been her brother's, there has been others to hurt him, like Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, and the Bone User. While Naruto hasn't the silent cool type like Sasuke or was some genius like Shikamaru, but he was loyal and someone who has a strong drive, and she likes his eyes and whiskers. He definitely wasn't the smartest. But she's glad to have him by her side, and at least he isn't lazy or arrogant, but you can trust him to always be there when you need him. She can't say she could see Shikamaru or any of the other guys to go as far as Naruto have gone, plus Shikamaru seems lazy to put in the extra work, but the blonde Jinchuriki was cute in his own way. It did make her heart flutter when he said she was precious to him. She honestly felt like Sakura was a fool for liking Sasuke. Sure, he was cute, but that didn't make up for arrogance or his superior complex, which is something she couldn't stand, and he was traitor. She really hopes she'll wake up to realize Sasuke isn't the type to care for others. Hell, if he was from Sunagaku, they'd kill. Her eyes glances over to Naruto, watching him get propelled back. I really hope he realizes Sasuke isn't worth it. But if Gaara was in Sasuke's place, I would do anything to bring him back. The other differences of Gaara had became rogue was that he's my brother, thought Temari. She really hopes Gaara is taking care of himself. Thinking about her brothers had only driven more. I'm the daughter of Kage, so giving up isn't an option, thought Temari. She rises to her feet and goes through the various hand signs and performs the earth ninjutsu. Once again, the soil she was able to generate was far bigger than before, causing her to grin at herself. Jiraiya grins to himself. He had to admit she potential. Hell, he would say she has enough potential to be one of the strongest kunoichi in her village. But training him and Temari had reminded his time training Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan. This also caused him to be sad. Ever since heard the rebels had died, Jiraiya always blamed himself for death of his students. He always wished he stayed a longer, or at least brought the children back to the village. This time I'll make sure both of them reach their goal. I won't them fail like I did with the AIM kids in Minato, thought Jiraiya. Plus he was sure if anything happened to any of the kids, Tsunade and Gaara would not only kill him but take turns. Plus he knew Minato and Kushina would kill him in the afterlife. Jiraiya grins widely as he watches turns to Naruto, who had successfully mastered the water ninjutsu. He watches with pride as two large boulders have smashed through them, reducing to small pebbles. He then felt sorry for the poor rocks. Gamakaso smirks at the boy. Congratulations, kid. You mastered the water release. High-pressured impact, Sweden, Kotsu. Now on to the next ninjutsu is Poison Mist Dokugiri, says Gamakaso. He then shows Naruto the hand signs for snake, boar, ram, and horse. Gamakaso puffs out his cheeks and launches a purple mist of poison. After a few tries with clones he had finally learned, but of course this had left him exhausted. Gamakaso decided to allow the boy to rest. Naruto turns to look at Temari and is amazed that she too bad learned the earth ninjutsu. She too seemed to be resting, no doubt exhausted from learning an affinity she wasn't too familiar. Plus not everyone is a stamina monster like him. Ever since the one-sided fight with Tenten he was amazed, plus at time he thought she was pretty. He still thinks she is now, and he did like her eyes. It kinda reminded him of the ocean. Is that your girlfriend? Asked Gamakaso, causing to jump with shock. Naruto's face becomes a deep shade of red. She isn't my girlfriend, exclaimed Naruto. Really could have fooled me. That's a pity. You two look good together, says Gamakaso. But I don't like Temari-chan, I like Sakura-chan, says Naruto, who's still red as a tomato. He then runs the cheek where Temari kiss. I don't like Temari-chan, she's just a friend, thought Naruto. Kyuubi scoffed at Naruto, rolling his eyes at his jailer. If she's only a friend, then why are you blushing? Teased Kyuubi. He then decides to take nap. The giant fox does have a valid point. Temari had treated 100 times better than his pink-haired teammate, and she never hit him unless he deserved it. Plus he was scared what Gaara and Kankuro might do. Naruto then begins telling Gamakaso about his crush on Sakura, and Gamakaso looks at Naruto like he's the planet's biggest idiot. I think you're an idiot, exclaimed Gamakaso. He had say this Tamari girl was far better than his teammate. Hey, exclaimed Naruto. I also think you're a glutton for punishment. I say you should ask her out. You are a ninja after all. You have no idea what might be your last mission. The last thing you want is regret, said Gamakaso. But we're from two different villages, said Naruto. Not right now, you aren't. Right now you are on a training trip with one of the strongest Sannin. Plus who cares if you are from two different villages? Exclaimed Gamakaso, causing Naruto to smile. He was right though, who cares if they were from two different villages? He just didn't want it to feel awkward if she said no, plus she was so cool and smart and he was just an idiot. His eyes then turned back to Tamari, who turned to look at him. She simply smiles and waves at the blonde Uzumaki to grin back at her, who blushes. He in return, seeing her blush. Maybe he did have a thing for the fan user, or maybe he was just an idiot. He honestly had no idea what was going on in his head. Maybe the fight the two of them had was still fresh in his mind, or maybe everything is just moving far too fast for him. Ever since the passing of Sandaime Hokage, it felt like his life has just been spinning out of control. Okay, Naruto, let's begin with the collaboration technique, advises Gamakaso. Naruto nods his head with a grin. He rises to his feet with excitement. Right, let's do this. Water release. High-pressured impact, Sweden, Kotsu. Exclaimed Naruto, creating a spiral of water on both hands. Gamakaso puffed out his cheeks and expelling a poison most from his lungs. Water release. Poison water bomb, Sweden. Dokuden, roared Naruto. The high-pressure poison water hit a tree. It not only destroyed the tree but had also begun to melt the tree. Naruto grins widely at this and pumps his fist high in the air. They then turn towards Tamari and Kamatari, channel wind affinity through their lungs. Violent whirlwind Resenpu, says Tamari. The two create a powerful stream of wind that literally knocks over numerous amounts of trees. Naruto looks on with a wide expression. I need to remember not to piss her off, thought Naruto. He honestly thought she might actually kill him if he did something increasingly stupid. Doctor help him if he even decided to do something perverted. There was no doubt in his mind that Tamari scares him more than Sakura ever did. Hey Naruto, you want to learn some Fuinjutsu, right? Asked the sage toad. Naruto dumbly nods his head. This causes Gamakaso to smirk. Good. There's two other jutsu I want to teach you: sealing technique, devouring void Fuinjutsu, Muchu ni Boido, and barrier of decapitation, Awawoku no Jomen. The Muchu ni Boido concentrates the user's chakra into a circular ring and forms the dragon hand seal at its center. You then raises the ring into the air above your head and releases the hand seal. A dark vortex is then created which acts as a void and the targets into the center of the vortex. Everything that gets into the vortex gets crushed by tremendous forces and shoots out from the other side, said Gamakaso, shocking Naruto. This technique was also an A- rank technique. As for the barrier of decapitation, Awawoku no Jomen, it uses the hand seals of hare, horse, and boar. The technique is very simple but efficient. You basically a barrier that is created around the head of the opponent, that then cuts their head clean off. Says Gamakaso. The road decided to teach Naruto the Awawoku no Jomen since it was much easier to learn. Gamakaso created several earth statues to practice on. Naruto uses the necessary hand seals. It only really took 3 tries. Gamakaso wasn't quite surprised. It only took the boy 3 attempts. She to both parents being Fuinjutsu master, so it only made sense Fuinjutsu would come easier for him. Naruto grins widely as he used the jutsu. He then gains a sweat drop at the destroyed statues. He then uses the seals once again and he watches a dark blue barrier appears around the statue's head. The statue's head is then cut clean off. Hell yeah. I'm on my way to becoming a seal master. I'm catching up to you, Sasuke. Datbeo, yells Naruto, causing Gamakaso to snicker at the hyper nod while the others just shook their head at the excited boy. Now the next one will be a little tricky. It is an A- ranked jutsu after all. Make about 40 clones and split them into a group of 10. Ordered Gamakaso. Naruto nods his head, creating a large group of he then split them into various of groups. Each of them concentrate their chakra into a circular ring and uses the dragon hand seal at the center. Naruto and his clones raise the ring above their heads and releases the hand seal. Some of the clones were able to get the ring above their heads while others weren't. These clones were quickly replaced. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he struggles to have the circle stay above him before it vanishes. For each time he fails, he quickly tries again from scratch. He then tries to focus more chakra in his hand. He grins as he's able to get it above his head without vanishing. A dark vortex then slowly appears. He grins, but with him losing concentration, it vanishes, causing the Kyuubi Jinchuriki be groan in frustration. Naruto is then forced to create the same amount of clones since the ones before were destroyed. He then repeated the process again. Okay, so far so good, mumbles Naruto. He watches with cautiously as a dark vortex begins to form while some others had vanished since they couldn't stabilize the vortex. Others were able to get it to stay. Naruto grins vigorously as the vortex is fully formed. Naruto and his clones test the vortex they created by throwing rocks, sticks, and anything they can find. They watch as the items that they had thrown were crushed with an insane amount of force and it shot out of the other side. Each of the clones vanished. Naruto raised his fist high in the air with pride. His celebration is then put on hold as he collapsed on the ground. Gamakaso then turns to Jiraiya, who's walking over carrying an equaling exhausted Tamari. You got some promising kids, Jiraiya, said Gamakaso. Jiraiya grins at Gamakaso. Yeah, don't I? Says Jiraiya. He then smiles warmly at the sleeping Jiraiya. I think the Naruto might be able to do it. That's Jiraiya watching his godson sleep. Learn Sage Mode. The very thing you weren't able to master? Asked Gamakaso. Unlike Minato, who was actually able to learn Sage Mode, Jiraiya wasn't. He needed the help from his parents to use it, but even then Jiraiya didn't really use it, mostly because he hasn't fought anyone to force him to use it, and the man didn't like how it made him unappealing to women. That and maybe he can do what Minato and I couldn't, says Jiraiya. Oh, you mean to achieve peace, right? Asked Gamakaso. He knew achieving peace was Jiraiya's dream even before signing the Toad contract. Peace had always been his dream. Sure, threat to achieve peace had changed from the years, but the goal had always been the same: to live in a world that is no longer plagued by war and hatred, a world where people understand each other. While he didn't care for his perverted side, he still respected the man. Jiraiya nods his head. Yeah, I believe he could do it. You know, every time I look at him I can't help but to see his father, Yahiko, and Nagato. He reminds me so much of them, it's almost scary, said Jiraiya with a small chuckle. There had been a few times where he almost called him Yahiko, but to be fair, he just looked like Yahiko. Gamakaso then gains a serious look on his face. So, when you gonna tell him? You know, the longer you wait he's just going to be angry with you, says Gamakaso. Yeah, I know, I'll tell him when he wakes up. I've waited too long. I failed to look after him, but I won't fail this time, says Jiraiya looking at the sleeping child. Naruto is then replaced with a sleeping Minato. He really is Minato's kid. Minato would also pass out from training all day, thought Jiraiya. Even back when he taught his team, Minato was always a hard worker, always trying to improve himself. Gamakaso nods head at Jiraiya. Ya know, I've always liked your first book, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi, better than that smut carp you write. Maybe you should start writing it again. The kid might start to respect more if you write something better. Call me if shit hits the fan, or if you need me to train Naruto. I can see why Gamabunta and Gamakichi like him so much, says Gamakaso with a puff of smoke. He returned back to Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya just shook his head with a smile. While he had thought about training Naruto in Sage Art, he wanted to wait a little while. Right now felt too soon. Maybe after they return to Konoha he'll teach him. Right now he wants to teach Naruto the Hiraishin no Jutsu first before Sage Art. While he couldn't make heads or tails of the technique, he knew Naruto could master it. Jiraiya then picks up Naruto and drops him on his shoulder. The white-haired Sannin then grins mischievous. Naruto snuggles into his pillow. He can't remember the last time he had such a great sleep. Even his bed back home wasn't this comfortable. Even his pillow wasn't this comfortable. The same could be said for the sleeping bag he slept. Actually, even the pillow he had wasn't this warm. This then raised answers: 1. When the hell was a pillow warm? And 2. Last time he checked, pillows sure as hell didn't move. Tamari had also, and the same realization. Blue and Teal stare in shock. Both teens turn bright red. NN Naruto, what the hell are you doing in my bed? exclaimed the blushing fan user. "IIIDD don't KNKN no," yells Naruto. The last thing he could remembered was successfully learning sealing technique, devouring void fuinjutsu, Muchu ni Boido, and then everything became black. Their blush becomes brighter as they realize they are holding each other quite intimately. The two quickly jump away from each other. Naruto then hears an all too familiar sound of giggling in pencil the two and finds Jiraiya giggling away and writing in his book, "Damn you Ero Sennin," yelled Naruto. He then throws various of scrolls and books at his sensei. Jiraiya easily avoids them until Naruto throws one Temari's fans at his head, causing him to call back in pain, "Repent pervert," yelled Tamari, slamming her giant fan into him, causing him to plummet to the ground, and no doubt the blow would impress Tsunade. Tamari crosses her arms, turning away from him. "Stupid pervert," muttered Tamari. She then blushes at how warm she felt being held by Naruto. She turns to look at him and notices he's also blushing. No doubt the boy then realized the pillow he was actually laying on was her chest. She then turns to glare at him, pointing her fan at him. The blush vanished as then replaced with fear. "You better not follow in his footsteps," said Tamari. The tone promised pain. Naruto shook his negatively. "I'd never peep on you like Ero Sennin, Tamari-chan. I'm not like him and Kakashi-sensei," said Naruto. She lowered her weapon and satisfied with the answer. Naruto might not be the smartest person in the Fire Country, but he wasn't dumb enough to peek on Tamari, and he was afraid what her brothers would to him if they found out. Tamari-chan definitely scarier than Sakura, thought Tamari. She didn't even need to yell at him. Just a stern look from the kunoichi scares him more than an angry Sakura or Ino. Tamari then notices Naruto has been staring at her for some time. She raised an eyebrow at her fellow. "What you looking at?" asked Tamari. She had to admit the way he was looking at her felt different than home. Back at Sunagakure, people would always looks at her with either fear of respect, they respected her for her skills as a kunoichi, but also fear her for being Gaara's sister and being the daughter of the Yondaime Kazekage, so making friends seemed more like pipe dream. But with how Naruto is staring, it wasn't the stares she got from the people home, it almost seemed like admiration. Naruto's face then becomes so red you could literally cook an egg in his head. "ILL like yo, why yo your eyes?" stuttered a shy Naruto. Tamari blushes, running her hand through one of her pigtails. "WHWH, what about my eyes?" stuttered Tamari. Naruto had once again took her out of her comfort zone. It made her felt young. The last time someone had complimented was her mother and uncle. Naruto looks down at his feet. He then gains the courage to look in her in the eyes, even though his legs are shaking with nervousness. "See. They remind me of the sea. They're vast and beautiful, just like the open Shan," exclaimed Naruto. Tamari stares in shock. She wondered, does he even know what he actually said? "TT, thank you. NN Naruto-kun," mumbles Tamari in a low tone. Jiraiya giggles at the two, completely ruining the moment. He then gains a serious look on his face. He looked at Tamari, then back at Naruto. "Oh, well, she's part of the team and she seems a good fit for Naruto," thought Jiraiya. He then takes a deep breath. "Naruto, there's something I need to tell you," says a serious Jiraiya. Both teens sensed the seriousness in his voice and knew it wasn't the perverted old man who enjoyed peeping in a good whorehouse. No, in front of them was Jiraiya of the Sannin. Jiraiya Tenseiga into his robes, taking out a picture and a book. The two stare at the photo, noticing Jiraiya as younger in the photo, but he was with 3 children. The blonde was obviously Minato Namikaze, while the other members look like they could be an Akamichi and possibly an Uchiha. They then turned towards the book and was surprised it wasn't his Ika book. That book is called The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. It was the very first book I ever wrote. It didn't sell too well because of the time period at the time, but your father loved it so much he named you after the main character," said Jiraiya, shocking Naruto. Both blonde teens then looks at the photo in shock. She stares at Naruto with shock and disbelief while Naruto had tears running down his face. "He also made me your godfather. Of course I didn't do such a good job. Honestly, I have no excuse at how poorly I am as a godfather. The only thing I can blame is himself and cowardly," says Jiraiya with a saddened look. He then digs in his robe again, taking out another picture. It was an image of a teenage Minato and Kushina. "Even if Sarutobi sensei had forbid me from taking me with you, I still should have. I've failed your father, mother, And you Naruto, I'm sure you finally figured out why you were chosen and probably why Kakashi and myself trained you. You aren't just a member of the Uzumaki clan but also the son of the Minato Namikaze. You must be disoof. Exclaimed Jiraiya as a orange missile had crashed into him. Naruto then cries into Jiraiya's chest, bringing a smile to himself. I'm not alone. Mumbled Naruto. Jiraiya pats the boy in the back. Jiraiya wipes away a soul tear. The Toad Sanin shook his head negatively. You were never alone, kid. I've always been watching you, said Jiraiya. He knew it was against the law to tell Naruto, but he didn't care, and he was sure Tsunade didn't care. He always thought hiding so much from Naruto was a horrible idea, while to be fair there was a lot of things he didn't agree with his sensei, like allowing Danzo to live. For one thing, he then turned towards Temari, who's also smiling, no doubt knowing the pain of loneliness. While she wasn't a Jinchuriki herself, she was a sister to one and daughter of a very strict and militarized father. Jiraiya then extends out his arm. Temari just shrugged her shoulders with a smile and joining in on the big. She smiles at how warm Naruto is, and if she had to be honest, she wondered, is this how it feels to be hugged by a father? Her own father wasn't known to be very fatherly. Even when it came to them, he was always very militarized, thinking how to strengthen the village, but this felt nice. You better watch where you're touching, joked Temari. Jiraiya laughs at that. Maybe in a few grunted Jiraiya as Naruto punched him in the ribs. Okay, I deserve that, muttered Jiraiya. He then groans in pain again as Temari's fist is then buried in his gut, causing him to groan. Yup, you definitely have Ross's temper, and Naruto definitely has his mother's temper. The three of them separate each other. Temari then picks up the photo of his photos. She then smiles. She's beautiful, says Temari, showing Naruto the photo. He smiles widely at the picture of his mother. She was indeed beautiful. He can see why his father fell in love with her. He just wishes he actually got to meet her. Naruto then turns to Jiraiya. Everyone back home knows, don't they? Asked Naruto. The ones who really knew them, yes, but for everyone else, no. The only ones who actually know are the clan heads and the advisors, said Jiraiya. He didn't. Those old crows, especially Danzo, those three were stuck in the old ways, refusing to ever move on with times. He promised himself if Danzo ever tried to take Naruto into his root program, he'd killed the old war hawk himself. He didn't. If he was necessary evil, he was still evil, and someone who his sensei should have taken care of decades ago. Aren't you good to get in trouble? Asked Naruto. Maybe. Who cares though? I live for adventure. But you know your mother had saying don't give up until the very end. Says Jiraiya. She was a very high-spirited woman, and much like her son, she was also a very skilled kunoichi. Back then she was one of the most skilled fuinjutsu masters, earning the moniker Ceiling Queen, Fuin no Ju. Temari looks at him with a smirk. You sure like to live dangerously, says Temari. We're ninjas, says Jiraiya with a wide smirk. That's fair, said Temari with shrugging her shoulders. Kosuke then appears in front of them, shocking the two while Jiraiya smirks at the tiny messenger. The toad hands him a scroll with the Sunagaku symbol. Upon seeing her, village's symbol caused a smile to appear on her face. The small red amphibian then turned towards Tsunade and hands her an envelope. Temari looks confused at the small toad. It's a letter from your brother, Gaara, says Kosuke. Temari quickly hugged the envelope into her chest. With his mission complete, he turned back home. Naruto smiles at Temari. He then turned to Jiraiya. So, what's the mission? Asked Naruto. Jiraiya grins at him. Land of Fangs, we gotta deliver some important documents, says Jiraiya. Oh, yeah, I remember that mission, said Naruto with a nervous look. What you did? Asked Temari with a deadpan expression. Naruto then told her what happened. She just shook her head at Naruto. You're an idiot, says Temari, causing him to laugh nervously. Unknown to them, a Nu can be seen flying out of the room. The bee then flies towards a small campsite that's only a few feet away. The bug flies on a shoulder of an Iwa shinobi. The man has black, short, spiky hair and pale skin. He has large, green, pupilless eyes, and the lower half of his face was concealed by bandages. He wore a purple tunic over a black bodysuit, his hands also being covered by bandages. This man is named Sound. Next to him is a female. She has long bluish-colored hair which she ties in such a fashion as to form a ball on top of her head, using what appears to be a knitting needle, while two large locks with lightened tips frame the remainder of her face. Her typical attire consists of a short sleeveless dress, further adorned by the presence of numerous bandages that encircle various portions of her body, including her waist and thighs. Her name is Nabiki. And next to her is another female named Hatsu, is a light-skinned woman with short black hair and golden yellow eyes, accentuated by feminine eyelashes. Hatsu is of slightly above average height with noticeably ample S. Both her fingernails and toenails are painted with dark red nail polish and she wears red lipstick. Hatsu wears a typical Iowa nin outfit. A brown Iwagakure-style flak jacket, a red Iwagakure uniform with both sleeves and lapels over both legs, mesh armor around her shins and ankles, and standard brown Iwagakure boots. Her scratched forehead protector is worn around her neck. In casual settings, her typical attire consists of a tight red dress with long kimono-style sleeves and slits on the sides that reveal her legs, as well as open-toed black high-heeled sandals. Nabiki then turns to Sound with raised eyebrow. "So, is that him?" asked Nabiki, polishing her reverse sword. Sound nods his head before he gains a sinister grin. "Yeah, that's him all right, and the children of Rasa and Minato," says the grinning Sound. Hatsu then creates a clay dragonfly. She stares at the roof. "Can we kill them slow or ruthlessly? And what about the others, do we tell them?" asked Hatsu. Sound nods his head. "Yeah, the others like to know." "We'll kill them ruthlessly," grinned the man. In Konoha it was just as bright and warm outside like any other day. The only difference about today is that Tsunade isn't in her personal hell, aka paperwork, the greatest enemy of all Hokage, but Tsunade isn't just drinking the day away like she would usually do. Besides, Shizune would find out somehow. She wasn't sure, but the niece of Dan somehow knew she was drinking sake. Maybe it was due to the fact the Ravenet just knew how Tsunade is, or it could be the fact that Shizune had spent her whole life with Tsunade. She just knew how the blonde's mind worked. Tsunade watches as Ino tries to bring the fish back to life. She had to admit this was one of Jiraiya's good idea, not that the man didn't have any good ideas, it was just that porn was usually on her teammate's mind. Ino had even told her about how Sakura was getting trained by Kurenai, which is good since the young Pinkett does have great chakra control. Even Kakashi had stated she could be good in genjutsu. Tsunade is then knocked out of her thoughts by the sound of a puff. She turns and sees a messenger toad who gives her a scroll. Tsunade takes it and smiles at the small creature. After reading the paper had brought a smile on her face. She was happy to read the improvement of Naruto. While she wished she could have been there for Naruto after he took his first kill, she was still proud at the progress of the male Uzumaki. It even seemed like Temari was a good influence on him, which is good. While she trusted Jiraiya to be able to train him, she didn't want the self-proclaimed super pervert to turn Naruto into a pervert. The village had enough perverts, plus the world doesn't need a second Jiraiya. She nearly shivered at the thought of Naruto peeping on females, writing his own perverted book, and proclaiming himself the world's biggest pervert. "I swear if Naruto comes back as a pervert, I'm going to break every bone in that pervert's body and have Inoichi wipe his mind of anything Icha related and replace it with gay porn," thought Tsunade with an annoyed look on her face. With Team Jiraiya. For some, Jiraiya shivered and felt true horror. Both Naruto and Temari looked at their sensei with a raised eyebrow. "What is it?" asked a curious Temari. She knew he was powerful, but he was also a perverted idiot. "I don't know why, but I feel like I should protect my research at all cost," exclaimed Jiraiya, causing both of the blondes to stare at the white-haired man with a deadpan expression. "Are you sure it's not Ba-chan cursing you?" questioned Naruto. He knew with Jiraiya's hobbies he was on the receiving end of Tsunade's monster strength, more than human possible. Jiraiya simply laughs at Naruto, puffing out his chest with pride. "Of course not. All the ladies can't resist me," exclaimed Jiraiya with a wide stupid grin. Temari just rolled her eyes at Jiraiya. "Are you sure it's not the money they want, because you are as desirable as the wart toads you summon?" insulted Temari, enjoying his annoyed look and muttering about disrespectful children. Naruto snickers at the glom Sanin. He then grins at the female Kunoichi. "Nice one, Temari-chan." exclaimed Naruto, smiling brightly at the daughter of the Kazekage. A link hue appears on her desert skin. Tamari smiles at the male, finding the bright smile of Naruto cute. Seeing Tamari smiling at him and also made Naruto blush. After all, he never had a female smile at him like this before, well excluding Hinata, but Naruto is oblivious when it comes to the female body. Jiraiya snickers in a lecherous manner. Tamari gains a tick mark on the side of her head. Jiraiya then plummets to the ground. Tamari smirks viciously at him while she pats her fan. Naruto chuckles at Jiraiya while Jiraiya just rubs his head, mumbling about aggressive blondes. He glances at the two, realizing just how close they gotten. These two honestly reminded him of his student Minato and his wife. The only difference this time is instead of a smart blonde and brash redhead, there was a brash blonde and smart blonde, and of course Tamari was just as scary as Kushina. Yep, Kushina would definitely like Tamari, thought Jiraiya. He then chuckles, knowing how Kushina would act if she was alive today. The two blondes narrowed their eyes at Jiraiya but quickly stopped when they noticed it wasn't one of his perverted laughs. After being around him so much, they knew the man had a lot of regrets, no doubt thinking about the people he couldn't save. Even now they knew the death of Minato and Kushina still weighed heavily on him. Naruto then gets an idea. Hey Jiraiya, said Naruto, shocking the man since he never called him by his name. It was also Ichi-sanin. Seeing he has the attention of the road sage, he decides to continue on. I started reading your book, your first book. I like it a lot and I think you should try to resell it, said Naruto. And it was true, it wasn't like the make-out tactics at all, which he was very thankful since those are pretty much porn on paper. Really? You think so? Asked Jiraiya. After all, when he tried to release the book it was a total failure. Naruto nods his head. Yeah, you said it didn't sell well because of the time you were in, right? Then why not try again? I mean, we aren't in a war. Asked Naruto, and he was sure the book will sell even though he didn't know jack shit about writing. He knew The Tale of a Gutsy Ninja was a good book and he thought of it as a family heirloom. Jiraiya then smirks at his godson. Yeah, maybe your brat, I think I will. Grinned the perverted toad. He then begins reminiscing about his younger years back when he was genin, before the death of Dan and Nawaki, before Orochimaru became obsessed with learning everything jutsu, and before the second ninja war. Those were definitely peaceful times, and the time when he became sensei, those were the days. Tamari then gains downed expression. Naruto, seeing this, decided to do something that would probably get him punched into the next time zone. He reaches for her hand, causing the young desert Kunoichi to jump in shock at hand contact. She especially never expected Naruto to grab hold of her hand. She turns to the nervous and blushing Naruto. She watches as he nervously scratched his cheek. Are you okay, Tamari-chan? You look down, asked Naruto, who's surprised he's not face first with an imprint of a fan on his head. Tamari tightens her hold on his hand, causing Naruto to look up at the older female and sees a look of sadness which reminded him of the look he had when he was alone with barely any friends. I miss them. I miss Gaara, Kankuro, my home, says Tamari. This was the first time she has been separated from them, especially now with Gaara's newfound look on life, the moment when Gaara finally stops his psychopathic ways. Naruto knew he couldn't possibly understand how she feels, even though he saw Konohamaru as a younger brother and Ayame as a big sister. He knew it wasn't exactly the same thing as having a real sibling. The only thing he could possibly think of was just to comfort her. An idea then came to mind. He grins brightly at her. I have idea, why don't you write to them? You can also write to your sensei too. I can send Gamakichi to deliver the letter. I just need some kind of snack, says Naruto. Naruto never did like seeing his friends sad, and for some reason the notion of Tamari being anything other than her usual confident self just felt wrong. Somehow he rather see her beautiful smile. He then blushed a darker shade of red for the strange thought. Tamari smiles at the request. I think I might try. It sounds like a great idea. It'll be nice if they can message back. I am curious how Sunagakure is doing. But why would you need a snack? Asked a confused Tamari. She really did appreciate him. Sure, he could be an idiot at times, but he really did come through. He definitely reminded her of how strong he was when he fought against her brother. He was someone you don't want to underestimate. He then gains a sheepish grin. Oh yeah, you see, Gamakichi and his brother Gamatatsu usually do what I want when I have chocolate or some type of snack. At least it's better than what Gamabunta wanted when I first summoned him, said Naruto with a small laugh. What did Gamabunta wanted? Asked a curious Tamari. She remembered when he summoned a tiny talking toad at first, then he summoned a giant toad to battle with the fully transformed Shukaku. She and everyone paid no mind to Naruto, thinking him nothing but a loud-mouthed brat whose ego matched the velocity of his voice. They thought the one who could come out on top would be Sasuke. But even Sasuke, the last Uchiha, stood no chance against her brother. It really shows being a prodigy really means nothing in the ninja world. Then again, he's nothing like Itachi or Shisui, who could have easily handled her brother. She did thought he was cute, but his whole attitude was definitely a turnoff. She honestly didn't understand why the females in Konoha liked him so much, especially the fact he betrayed the village. For Tamari, Sasuke was following in Itachi's footsteps. Both decided to leave the village for power. Well, the only exception was Sasuke didn't murdered his own family, but because of his superior complex many of his classmates were injured, some even nearly died. Naruto was definitely a better catch. He was loyal. You can trust him to always have your back, and he was cute when he got this determined look in his eyes. Tamari blushes an atomic red at the thought of her, thinking Naruto was cute. He wanted me to share a drink with him, said Naruto. He can literally feel the grip on his hand tightens. Did you? Asked Tamari in a tone of voice that promised pain. Naruto, with fear laced in his very action, shook his head negatively. This seemed to calm her down, this making her grip on his hand lessens. I told him I was too young to drink, so he said when I'm older we'll share a drink, explained Naruto. That's good. I don't want you picking up any of Jiraiya's habits, said Tamari. Sure, she respected the man for his prowess and his vast knowledge, but she obviously didn't respect his hobby. Hell, she hates the fact that he would proclaim how he is a super pervert and his constant hobby of visiting the brothel. The world already has one super pervert, it certainly doesn't need a second one. Sure, Orochimaru might be grooming Sasuke into the next Orochimaru doesn't mean Jiraiya needs to make Naruto into a perverted shinobi. Naruto smiles brightly at her, giving her his usual dopey grin. Don't worry, I won't ever turn into a pervert like Ero Sennin. I'll be a great shinobi like my father, says Naruto with a true smile. It wasn't his usual wide grin, but it was smile that had depth in it. Tamari then blushed at the thought of an older Naruto resembling his father. She then suddenly felt it was one of those hot days at Sunagaku. Jiraiya glances at the two and smiles as he noticed they haven't let go of each other. He now knew taking Tamari was a smart choice, not just for strengthening the bond between both villages, but more importantly, Naruto has someone he can depend on. He liked Tamari way more than his teammate. She was a lot less loud and was better company for his godson. Plus, I don't want him to make the same mistakes I did, and finding someone that isn't like Tsunade will sure do it. All we need him to do is forget about Sasuke, thought Jiraiya. He wonders how many years had he wasted trying to get with his teammate who has still been in love with Dan after all the years that have passed. Jiraiya knew if he had just moved on he could have had his own family. Hell, he'd actually be grandfather right now if he had his own family. The Sannin glances at Naruto and smiles at young boy. He may not have a son of his own, but he does see Naruto has a son. Minato, Kushina, are you watching over your son? Are you seeing how far he's come? Wondered Jiraiya as he stares into space. He wondered, in the afterlife, are they watching their son goes through the struggles of being a Jinchuriki? Jiraiya also can't wait to see how his godson matures during the next years. If he's anything like his father, then Naruto could be quite powerful by the time they need to return to Konoha. He hopes by that time Naruto can be able to fight Orochimaru without the need for backup. After all, if Naruto was able to learn to completely master the Rasengan in only few weeks, then he knew Naruto could learn other techniques, and with the usage of clones that cuts the time in half. Jiraiya then lets out a chuckle. What the hell are you laughing at, Ero Sennin? Roared Naruto, glaring dangers at his godfather. He doesn't know why, but he knew the pervert was laughing at his own amusement. The Toad Sage's grin widened even wider. Oh, it's nothing, it just I never thought the son of the Yondaime Hokage and the daughter of the Yondaime Kazekage would make such a good couple. Says Jiraiya while giggling like a schoolgirl. The two of them glares at Jiraiya. Naruto then clenches his fist while Tamari grips her iron fan. Jiraiya then points down. They follow where he's pointing and they notice they haven't stopped holding hands. The two jump away from each other, both sporting a nuclear blush. If one can look closer they might see steam coming from their heads. Ahahaha. You kids make it too easy. Laughed Jiraiya holding his stomach. Naruto throws shuriken at his sensei who easily dodges. He then laughs at the embarrassed Naruto. Unfortunately he wasn't fast enough when an iron fan was thrown at his face. Jiraiya groans in pain, clutching his face. He mumbles about disrespectful blonde and Minato was never disrespectful. Tamari smirks at pain-filled Jiraiya. Maybe that'll teach you a lesson, pervert. Says Tamari, smiling at Jiraiya with smug grin on her face. Jiraiya the hope back in his feet doing his usual pose. I'm not a pervert. I'm a super pervert, exclaimed Jiraiya with a goofy grin on his face. Both blondes stare at their teacher with a deadpan look. You forgot world's biggest idiot. Insulted Naruto, shaking his head. He wasn't very impressed the first time Jiraiya did this. He wasn't. Now he then lets out a sigh. Come on, Tamari-chan, we have to deliver this document, says Naruto passing by his godfather. Tamari nods in agreement. Right, Naruto-kun, says the female. Jiraiya pouts to himself. Don't get a fat head just cause your precious Tamari-chan got you a little smarter. Joked Jiraiya, speeding past them. Both teens blush in embarrassment. The two chants after the perverted Sanin. Unknown to them they were being watched by a small group of bees. Later, inside a hotel, Team Jiraiya can be seen doing their own thing. Jiraiya had just had his toad send a manuscript of Tale of a Gutsy Ninja to his editor. Tamari was cleaning her weapons, and Naruto was studying a ceiling scroll. While they were enjoying their free time before they get another mission on the outside of town, Sound and his Iwagakure comrades sit around him. There are also 3 other IWA men who belong to the Iwagakure Explosion Corps. They even had the 2 other B users, Kuromichi and Kutra. Their names are Guio, Haichi, and Bon. Guio is a man in his 30s with shaggy spiky black hair and brown-colored eyes. He wears the standard Iwagakure flak jacket and a red single-sleeved shirt underneath, leaving the entirety of his right arm exposed except for the presence of his scratched forehead protector, wrapped around the upper portion of the arm. He also has the traditional lapel hanging from the right side of his pants and shinobi boots. Haichi is a heavy-set man in his late 30s with a full-grown beard with short brown hair. He has green-colored eyes. He wears his scratched forehead protector on his forehead. He wears a sleeveless mesh vest over it. He wears an Iwagakure Junin vest. He wears traditional lapel hanging from the right side of his pants and brown shinobi boot. Bon is a young man in his kid-20s with black spiky hair. He has brown eyes. He wears the standard Iwagakure flak jacket and a brown single-sleeved shirt underneath, leaving the entirety of his right arm exposed except for the presence of his scratched forehead protector, wrapped around the upper portion of the arm. He also has the traditional lapel hanging from the right side of his pants and shinobi boots and black shinobi boots. Guio turns towards Sound with his eyes narrowed. Are you sure this brat is the son of the Yellow Flash? Asked Guio with suspension. Sure, it is odd that Jiraiya's new student is blonde and the daughter of Rasa. Sound nods his head. Yes, I heard him say so himself. Think about it, the kid looks like Minato. His last name is Uzumaki. Who else in Konoha had that name? Asked Sound. He watches as Guio narrowed his eyes and grins darkly. This is our chance. We get to kill Jiraiya, the daughter of the Yondaime Kazekage and the son of the Yondaime Hokage. We'll never get this chance again. Grinned Sound. Yeah, I hear you. The son of the Yondaime Ahehe. People will pay millions for his head. Grinned Guio darkly. Exactly. But first, why not let Minato's brat come to us? Grinned Sound. Guio matches his grin. They knew even their Tsuchikage would pay them a high price. Back with Team Jiraiya. Jiraiya leaves the room giggling in his usual perverted manner. Both Naruto and Tamari sighs at the old man. Damn that pervert. Hey, did you have your wallet laying out? Asked Naruto. She shook her head negatively and looks at him with confusion. Last time I left my wallet out, he took money and spent it on whores. Exclaimed Naruto. The fact that Jiraiya left to screw some cheap whore doesn't really surprise her, but what does is he took Naruto's money. She knew with him writing his open he should have plenty money to spend, especially with all the secret missions he done for both Sandaime and Godime, but he has his money, states Tamari. She was beginning to wonder if Konoha Specialities wasn't producing powerful ninjas instead producing perverts. Yeah, I know right. But he's a cheap crusty man whore, exclaimed Naruto. Tamari then begins to giggle at the open insult. She then smirks at the door before smirking back at him. Hey, how about you forget that pervert and teach me a fuinjutsu? Asked Tamari, who was starting to believe Konohagakure ninjas were too free-caring, especially Jiraiya. She also remembered Naruto telling her about his other sensei Kakashi and Iruka. She noticed all the grown-ups in Naruto's lives were perverted to some degree. Naruto blinks at her with surprise before nodding his head with glee. Tamari smirks at his childlike antics. Sure, I can teach you the wind release trap futon torapu. It's pretty simple, just throw a special tag down at your enemy's feet, which unleashes a tornado of wind, launching them up into the air, explained Naruto. He then begins writing the kanji in the scroll. Tamari then pours some of her wind chakra into the scroll. The two smile down at the scroll. Tamari had to admit the sealing formula on the paper was quite complicated. She herself wasn't very skilled fuinjutsu, she just knew the basics of it. Then again, Sunagakure hardly had any fuinjutsu masters. She smiles at the blonde male. Wow, Naruto-kun, this is amazing. I don't think I could ever come up with something like this, or even that teammate of yours Sasuke, said Tamari. He blushes at the compliment. He rarely ever got one, thanks to most thinking he's just some screw-up. Not many ever praise, especially not when comparing him to his traitorous friend Sasuke. Really? You mean it? I don't think what I did was all that special, says Naruto in an embarrassed tone. He could only remember a few times someone had praised him. She nods her head. Yeah, of course I do, and unlike Sasuke, you are loyal to your village. I know you will become the next Hokage, says Tamari, leaving him shocked. She then runs her hand across his whiskered face, causing him to release a purr. Naruto blushes in embarrassment and comfort while she struggling contains herself from not squealing at how cute the not have known knew he had a weak spot. The two then bring their faces closer to one another and Tamari, content with playing with his whiskers, Naruto not being able to pull away, just turned into putty in her very hand. Suddenly their eyes then begins to feel heavier, which was strange. Neither were tired at all. Their eyes then begin to feel heavy. They soon struggle to stay awake. Both of them soon collapse against one another. Bees then cross the room and taking the form of Nabiki, who grins down at the two children. Bee pheromones technique, Hachi pheromone no jutsu, thought Nabiki with a smirk. She then stares at the two before keeping her focus on Tamari. She carefully separated the two and slings the girl over her shoulders. She then grabs Tamari's weapon and shunshin, dispersing in a cloud of bees. The blonde couldn't remember when he fell asleep. The last thing he remembers was staring into Tamari's eyes. Maybe that was part of the dream, but he knew one thing: sleep never felt so good. Naruto's peaceful sleep is put to halt as he violently shaken from his slumbering. As his eyes slowly open, he sees the serious face of Jiraiya. The blonde looks around the room and doesn't see her anymore or her fans. A sleepy expression. He released a yawn. Is Tamari-chan out training? Asked a sleepy Naruto, wiping the sleep away from his eyes. Jiraiya decides to just hand the note, confusing his godson. The sleep from his body is then kicked out as he read the letter. Jiraiya has to admit he's never once seen Naruto this angry before, not even when he found out Sasuke left the village or when Tsunade had bad-mouthed the other Hokage. Kamizuru clan was a clan of bee users from Iwagakure who were once very well-known and revered. They are all descendants to Ishikawa, the first Tsuchikage. Sometime after his passing, Ishikawa's clan fell into disgrace. Nearly all of them had left Iwagakure. They no doubt figured who you are, said Jiraiya. So, basically these bastards are like Shino but with bees? Asked Naruto. Jiraiya nods his head. Then what are we waiting for? We have to save Tamari-chan. We can't let them get away with this. I won't let some bastard take those close to me, exclaimed the blonde. His mind then wanders towards the people he lost. He can still remember the words that Haku spoken to him. Jiraiya places his hand on Naruto's shoulder with a firm hold, preventing the young blonde running head-on into a trap. The fact that these two aren't dead either means they want to kill Naruto when he's awake, or they have some other plan in mind. Naruto, before we go, I need you to do everything I say and don't question me, understood? We're dealing with Junin and Chunin. One wrong move and they'll most likely kill Tsunade, and it's safe to presume it's a trap, said Jiraiya in a serious tone. He needed Naruto thinking straight and not just running into it like a madman. Naruto looks down at his student's feet in anger. Hi, I understand, Jiraiya-sensei, I'll bring her back no matter what, said Naruto. He knew he couldn't mess this up. Temari's life was in danger. Do you have someone who is precious to you? Thought Naruto. He then nods his head. He does have someone precious to him. This time he'll protect those special to him. Good. Then head out and save your girlfriend, said Jiraiya. Naruto ignores the obvious jab. Instead he speaks with Kyuubi. Seeing the look on Naruto's reminds him of both Minato and Yahiko. It seemed like each of these can very silly if not kind of an idiot, but when action calls for it they become a hardened shinobi. Kyuubi stares at Naruto with narrowed eyes. The blonde can literally feel the very best coming from the fox's mouth. You're saying you don't want my power? Why? With my chakra you can easily crush these fools before they even realize they were dead, growled Kyuubi. It seemed like traveling with Temari and Jiraiya hadn't made Naruto change all that much. The blonde still refuses to use his chakra now. He'd thought with that sand woman taken it would have forced Naruto to be begging before him. It's true, with your chakra I could easily beat those bastards before they even know it. But I don't want to that. If I'm going to kill these Iwagakure, it's going to be by my own hands, exclaimed Naruto, glaring daggers at Kyuubi. Kyuubi smirks at the blonde. I think you're finally growing up, brat. If you're going to be fighting people, the least I can do is give you a fighting choice, says Kyuubi. He then taps Naruto on the forehead. Kyuubi informs him of the knowledge the fox has, especially when said information revolves around Mito Uzumaki, his first Jinchuriki, the person who first sealed him away. Back with Iwagakure ninjas, Sound grins to himself, staring at the tied-up Temari, who's dreaming of her brothers and a certain blonde that is, until she's awakened by a cold splash of water. Temari coughed out some water and quickly realizes a few things. One of the main, she's not in the hotel room with Naruto, and two, she's surrounded by various of Iwagakure. Not only that, but both her arms and legs are bound. Wakey, wakey, exclaimed Sound, grinning down at the tied female. Temari glares at scratched headband. Sound grins at the tied Temari. Ah, no need to look like that, grinned Sound with a dark grin on his face. Hatsu grins darkly as she grabs Temari by the face harshly. Temari glares daggers at the woman with a scowl. If you continue with that look on your face, it'll get stuck, mocked Hatsu in a teasing manner. Temari in response spits at Hatsu. The black-haired woman in response simply slams her head into the ground. She then pulls out a kunai, but before she can even lay one scratch on Temari, Sound grips her hand, stopping her. Hatsu looks at Sound with an annoyed look. Hatsu sees her tongue in irritation. She just leans against a tree and wipes the spot from her face, grumbling about stupid kids. Sound just chuckles at Hatsu. Now Hatsu, the last thing we need is you to damage the merchandise. Sorry about Hatsu, she hates kids, says Sound in a tone that sounded far too friendly for her liking. What do you want? Hissed Temari with a scowl on her face, glaring death daggers at the man. Sound then gains a fake look of pain. Ah, there's no need for that tone. And I thought I told you. Your face will freeze like that, joked Sound with a dark look on his face. He then gains a twisted grin on his face. What I want is quite simple. Your boyfriend is what I want, grinned Sound with a look that would impress Kisame and Orochimaru. All the other Iwagakure ninjas each laugh and grin at the angered Temari. Sound had to admit the look on her face reminded him a lot of the serious and stern look Rasa would have. What do you bastards want with Naruto-kun? Growled Temari. She had never met an Iwagakure ninja before, but she already didn't like them. Nabiki grins at this with a mischievous look on her face. She then smirks at the other female on her team. Did you hear that, Hatsu? Naruto-kun? questioned Nabiki with a sly smirk on her face. The idea of two offsprings of a cage liking each other, especially when their fathers were Minato and Rasa, two of the most deadly and strongest shinobi of the previous generation. Hatsu grins to herself. It seems like the little desert rose has fallen for a maelstrom. Mocked Hatsu. Bon then taps on his forehead protector. Isn't obvious what we want? We may have left our village, but everyone knows of the yellow flash. I mean, come on, he's trained by Kakashi and Jiraiya. Hell, the damn brat looks like Minato for sake. We'd have to be blind and stupid not to put two and two together. Gloats Bon. Tamari then gives them a wide grin. You guys must be quite foolish. There's no way you idiurk. Groaned Tamari in pain as Bon kicked her in the face. The young man then grabs her by the hair and punches her in the face, causing her lip to bleed. He then released her and stomps on her head with vicious grin. Not so tough. Huh. Mocked Bon as he repeatedly kicked her head. He then forcefully drags Tamari on her feet and pressed a kunai to her throat while he aggressively grabs onto her and her cheek with a twisted, perverted look on his face. I know how we can hurt that yellow flash spawn. How about we have some fun with Blondie here? Giggled Bon. Tamari bits her, already gleefully avoiding the look of many of the men who had QZ's own perverted grin on their face, while Nabiki and Hatsu didn't even look to concern Lulu. Damn it. These guys are insane. Naruto-kun, Jiraiya, where the hell are you guys? Thought Tamari with concerned and worried. Time skip. Hatsu, Kuromichi, and Kutra grin at each other as they see Jiraiya and Naruto heading their way, seeing the three Iwagakure ninjas, causing the two stop dead in their tracks. Jiraiya then pulls the blonde boy behind. He glares at each of these. Where's Tamari? Demanded Jiraiya, returning back to the room, and missing one blonde child did not sit well for him. He had to admit Tamari had begun to grow on him. The three grinned at the two Konohagakure shinobi. Hatsu grins at the scowl on Naruto's face. She then lets out a whistle as if she's impressed. Yep, there's no doubt in my mind you are the son of Yellow Flash. You have that bastard's eyes. Laughed Nabiki with a dark grin. Hatsu and Kuromichi also chime in at laughing at the two. Where's Tamari-chan? Growled Naruto with a scowl on his face as he stares at the three with utter disgust. These people didn't matter to him. The only thing that did matter to Naruto was saving Tamari. Everything else came second. Kutra grins at Naruto as he his lips. She's alive for now, unfortunately. If I had it my way, I'd have a taste some of that desert rose you care so much about. Grins Kutra, giving the two a twisted, crooked grin. He enjoys looking at the angry look on both Naruto's and Jiraiya's face. The young man then gains a fake sob expression. Unfortunately, only one you can get by while the other stays with us. Grinned Kutra. Naruto, go. Ordered Jiraiya without a second thought. He passed by them. He knew Jiraiya can take these bastards. One he was after a Sanin. They were just some cheap Aburame knockoff. Naruto is then forced to jump to the side as an explosion tag nearly hit him. He turns and glares at Haichi, who's grinning at him from a tree. Naruto scowls at the man who grins at the blonde. You sure do have your father's eyes, said Haichi. The man chuckles to himself. If this kid was anything like his father, then this might actually be a fun fight. The blonde stares at Haichi with a cold tone and deadly look in his eyes. The blonde then summons his Kusarigama. Where the hell is Tamari-chan? Growled Naruto with a hardened tone. Haichi's hand glows bright with explosion release. You'll have to get through me to get to your little girlfriend. Now show me what you got, Uzumaki. Exclaimed Haichi with excitement. The man charges at Naruto with a straight punch. Naruto jumps to the side, avoiding the exploding punch, but the debris had thrown him towards the tree. Neurosurgeons in pain as he hit the tree. Haichi then jumps down with an exploding kick. Naruto then quickly backflips away, avoiding the explosion. Haichi appears in front of Naruto and punches the blonde in the chest with dark grin. He blasts an explosion in Naruto's face. Naruto pants in pain as blood drops from his face. Haichi laughs at the bloody face. Naruto. Haichi then uses the hand seals of snake, dog, boar, rat, ram, ox, and rabbit. He extends both hands out. Explosion release. Great explosion line. Bakuten. Ritoku no Shibarain. Exclaimed Haichi with a wide grin. A orange beam of power heads Naruto's way, shocking the blonde. The blonde quickly replaced himself with a substitution jutsu. Naruto stares in shock at the blast. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the large crater where the explosion had landed. He knew if he hadn't used substitution he'd be dead right now. The man then concentrated his explosion release into his hand and punches the ground, sending rubble everywhere. He then launched an explosion punch which had sent the rocks at Naruto at a fast speed. Naruto grits his teeth. He then creates a large earth wall, taking the blunt of the attack. Unfortunately, the wall is then destroyed by Haichi. Naruto quickly fires an air bullet at him which hits dead on. Naruto creates several clones and each charges at Haichi, who easily handles them with swift strikes. The clones that were destroyed created a smoke screen. Naruto then throws his Kusarigama, but Haichi uses his explosion to deflect the blast. Kukuku, you'll have to do better than that, mocked Haichi. I did, said Naruto. Haichi then gasped in pain as he's struck in the back by a Rasengan. The man jumps to the side as an wind-infused Kusarigama slash. Haichi then released an explosion, propelling him to Naruto. Catching off guard with a knee to the face, he then punches Naruto into the temple, causing him to skid across the floor. The man jumps high in the air with explosive axe kick. Naruto sickly deflects it with a wind slash that had thrown the two back. The blonde quickly swings his Kusarigama, unleashing vertical wind slashes. Haichi combats this by unleashing massive explosions. Naruto grit his teeth as the explosions has scorched his skin. Naruto is then forced to jump back as the man fires small explosion balls, but as they hit the ground, Naruto's field of vision is blinded by a bright light. Naruto then gasps in pain as Haichi knocked the wind out of him with a single punch. Haichi then gives Naruto an explosion uppercut punch, launching him high in the air. Haichi then follows up with a bell drop, sending Naruto face first into the ground. The man then lets out a laugh, ha ha ha. So, this is the legacy of the Yellow Flash. Ahahaha, what a disappointment. Explosion release. Red Planet Technique, Bakuten, Akaiwakusei no Jutsu. Roared Haichi, bringing down a giant orange orb. He was expecting to see Naruto to be reduced into nothing but ash, but instead as one of destruction makes contact with golden chains. Haichi stares in shock at the chains. He then narrowed his eyes at the chains surrounding the blonde. Haichi is then forced to jump back as chains from the ground. Damn it, those chains can stop my Kaiwakusei, thought Haichi. He then punched a tree, sending splinters at Naruto, but the blonde creates a dome of wind blade which protect him. Haichi charges at Naruto. The blonde dodges a left punch but was caught by a surprise jab to the throat and a side kick. Naruto gasps in pain as Haichi hits him an explosion palm strike while he was sent flying. Naruto throws a wind-fused shuriken which had nailed Haichi in the eyes. Naruto with gritted teeth jumps high in the air with a back flip while upside down. He then swings his chain sickle around his body. Wind release. Adaten Typhoon Futon. Adaten Teifu, said Naruto. He unleashes powerful gust of circular wind that slashes Haichi, who's fortunately literally below him. The man screams in pain as the poisonous wind slashes cut deep into his body. The man falls to his knees gasping with air. Naruto, covered in blood, uses the ram and tiger hand seal. Each of his fingertips ignite with white flames. Uzumaki sealing technique. Fierce sun god Uzumaki Fuinjutsu. Heigashi Taiyo Shin, exclaimed Naruto as his hands slammed against Haichi's chest. The man then screams in pain as his very being is burning. He tries to fight off the pain, but all it does is burn him even more until he is ash in the wind. Naruto then collapsed to his knees, mentally thanking the fox for showing him Mito Uzumaki's the fierce sun god technique. Naruto then pants heavily. Damn, that last one took a lot out of me. Explosion release. It's simple but effective, said Naruto, panting hard. He then slowly rises to his feet and begins to travel through the forest. He then can sense Temari's chakra and begins to run towards the direction. He then narrowed his eyes as bees begins to make a trail. He then follows the bees. It took him only a few minutes until he sees Sound, Nabiki, and Hatsu surrounded a beaten Temari. Seeing Temari in such a state only fuels his anger. He also noticed Temari as being gagged. The blonde glares at three. What the hell did you bastards do to Temari-chan? Demanded Naruto. He definitely was not liking the smug look on Sound's face. Sound just playfully waved him off. Oh, nothing, those are just love taps. Yano, she has quite the mouth as you can see. said Sound, wrapping his arm around Tamari in a death grip, smirking at Naruto, who's just glaring at him with the most disgust. The concept of bringing Sasuke back to the village wasn't even on his mind, or the promise he made to Sakura for the young blonde Sasuke, Sakura, and the promise of a lifetime meant absolutely nothing to him. He just wanted to save Tamari from these bastards. Nabiki grins at Naruto with a silent command. Thousand of bees fires off their poisonous stingers at Naruto. The blonde swings his sickle, deflecting each of the bees. He then released 4 vertical wind slash that kills the bees. A horse of bees charge at Naruto. The blonde quickly backflips away, throwing 4 exploding tags. He then unleashes a wind blade which had destroyed the bees. Hatsu throws several of small clay creatures. Naruto summons his chakra chains which had created a barrier protecting him. Hatsu throws a clay centipede. Naruto quickly fires a wind bullet. The clay creation explodes prematurely. So, this one can mold his explosion release in clay. He's different from the other one I fought. Damn it, of course both of them are long-range fighters, thought Naruto. He quickly creates a clone, at which the clone throws the original at Nabiki. She avoids the flying kick. While still in the air, he throws his chain sickle at her. She leans to the side, avoiding the blade. She then grabs hold of the chain and pulls the chain back. She punched the blonde straight in the face. Hatsu then appears next to him and grits his teeth at the punch to the ribs. She grabs him by the head and knees him in the face. She swiftly pulls out a kunai and stand him the shoulder. The blonde yells in pain, even though every fiber of his being is screaming in pain. He gives her a vicious headbutt, breaking her nose in the process. Naruto then released a gale wind at her, tossing her back. Naruto then creates 5 clones. Each one attacks Hatsu. The first 2 clones throws shuriken at the man's legs, causing him to scream in pain. Another clone performs a handstand and kicks Hatsu in the stomach with both feet, causing the man to gasp in pain as the wind was knocked out of him. The clone then kicks him in the chin by a wind-infused kick. Another clone hits the man with a wind strike, causing him to fly higher in the air. Naruto then begins to send wind-infused air palms to the man, causing him to blast hover in the air. The blonde pours chakra into his legs, launching himself higher in the air. The man gasps in pain. He grits his teeth as he pulls out multiple clay birds. Naruto pays no mind to this and spins on mid-air, slashing the clay creations with his sickle blade. He ignores the burning of his skin and slams the blade into Hatsu's shoulder. Flash barrage! Roared Naruto. Hatsu is slammed into the ground. Naruto then stumbles as he stands and grabs hold on his now bleeding side. Even though he's slowly healing doesn't mean taking that type of an explosion hadn't caused him pain. One down, says Naruto. His eyes then bulges wide in pain as Nabiki kicks so hard on the ribs a crack can be heard. Tamari can only watch in horror as Nabiki ruthlessly punches Naruto. She cursed herself being in this type of position. As Tamari watches as Nabiki ruthlessly punches Naruto, she feels shame and fear. Shame for herself for being captured so easily, and fear for Naruto, the boy who went out of his way to save her brother, and now he's doing the same, going against these Iwagakure bastards. The last time she felt this bout of fear was during the Konoha crush. At times she was scared of the freed Shukaku running rampage and killing her and her brother. Now she fears that this woman might kill Naruto. Nabiki grabs Naruto by the collar and repeatedly punched him in the face. The blonde wasn't sure, but he was positive everything was spinning. The blonde pulls out a flash bomb and blinds Nabiki, who drops him on the floor. The blonde quickly makes space between the two. He then gains a grin smirk as he throws 3 exploding tags which had burned a good part of her face. Why, you bastard! You ruined my face! I'll kill you, be honey drizzle, Mitsubaki no Kosame! Roared the burnt Nabiki. The bees create hardened needle honey. She even had the other news fires their poisonous stingers. Tamari stares wide-eyed with fresh tears as over 1,000 sharp weapons ready to turn Naruto into a pin cushion. As the projectiles head closer to him, he channels a large amount of wind chakra through his Kusarigama, dance of sickle blade, rampant arc rampage, Hagama no Mai, Bako Choryo. Roared Naruto. He create A dome of wind sickle-shaped blades around him that defend against the incoming weapons. Naruto runs at her, cutting through the various of bees, but as they cut they explode in honey, stopping him in place. Nabiki grins at the blonde as she stabs him in the gut with a kunai. Red chakra then covers his body, melting the honey with a mighty roar. He stabs the blade into her chin. The woman chokes on her own blood before her body soon becomes limp. Naruto removes his blade, allowing her dead body to fall to the ground. Naruto then points his chained sickle at Sound. "You're next. Now get the hell away from Tamari-chan, you bastard!" yelled Naruto, glaring daggers at Sound. Sound just lazily rises to his feet. "How scary. If you were any other person you'd be long dead. It must be your Uzumaki bloodline. I can't wait till I hand you over to the Tsuchikage, and I bet your sand friend would make a good slave. Lots of people would pay a high price for Akage's daughter, especially one so fresh," said Sound as he runs his hand over Temari's bruised cheek. Seeing this has enraged the already angry Naruto. His body then begins to tremble with pure unadulterated hate. "Don't you touch her!" roared Naruto in anger. The blonde Uzumaki throws a volley of shuriken. Sound easily deflects it with a kunai. The man claps his hands together, shots out stone bullets. Naruto then creates wide wind blades that stop the rock bullets. Sound then appears in front of Naruto and punches him in the chest, throwing Naruto back. The blonde quickly creates a wide number of clones. Sound grins at this and commands his bugs to fly at the clones. Each of these bees seems to have an explosion tag, shocking Naruto and his clones. Suddenly over a dozen exploding tags go off. Naruto bowls in pain, his eyes shot open in shock as an exploding bee flies by his face. The blonde quickly replaced himself with a long. He then glances at Tamari. He knew he had to find a way to free her. The blonde then smirks to himself. "I just need to cut this bastard once and it's over, but that's easier said than done. I need Temari's help. I feel like I might collapse any minute. And I'm not sure if I can use that fierce sun god," thought Naruto, staring at the aged man. The elder shinobi sends his bees at Naruto. The blonde in response hits them with an air bullet which had destroyed them. Naruto grabs a handful of flash bombs and throws them at Sound, blinding the man. He then runs at Sound with a flying kick, but Sound dodges to the side, grabs a hold of Naruto's leg and throws him to the ground. Naruto then backflips away. "You don't seem upset about your friends. Don't you care they are dead?" asked Naruto. "We're shinobi, kid. We expected death the moment we put this on," exclaimed Sound, pointing to his forehead protector. "Death is uneventful for we ninjas. A real shinobi expects death. They know someday they will die, whether it be in the battlefield or not. I welcome death. And once I give your head to the Tsuchikage, I'll be so rich I can take it easy," exclaimed Sound. Naruto glares at the man with a venomous glare. He was in so much pain, everything hurt. Hell, standing up hurt, but he knew he couldn't waver. He couldn't give up, not now. Naruto then grabs his kusarigama with a death grip which nearly made his fingers bleed. "I will assure you this, without a shadow of doubt in my mind, I will not yield," exclaimed Naruto with conviction. Sound sends a large army of bees at Naruto. The blonde then summons 4 clones. Each of them summoned a pair of demon windmill shuriken. Each of the giant shuriken are infused with wind chakra, making them even sharper. Each of them throws the weapon. Each of the shuriken is then covered in exploding tags, cutting through the bees. Sound is then dispersed in a crowd of bees. Sound is then forced to jump away from the wind slashes from Naruto. Sound then stabs Naruto through the gut with his kunai. The blonde smiles darkly as Naruto begins to turn into his mud. Sound then gasps in pain as a huge gust of wind slams him into a tree, causing to break through the tree. Sound wipes the blood from his face. He then slowly turns to see the bruised Tamari. Glaring death glares at Sound. Sound stares in shock. He realized Naruto must have replaced himself with a clone when he created that huge explosion, and when he was distracted Naruto had freed Tamari. And Naruto glares darkly at the man. "Tisk, cheeky little brats," scoffed Sound. He then creates a large swarm of bees. Both the two blondes cut the bees. "Tamari-chan, let's go. Wind release. Whirlpool rose technique, futon. Idirozu no jutsu," yelled Tamari and Naruto. Tamari uses her large fan to create a tornado, trapping Sound. Naruto then throws a demon windmill shuriken that has several exploding tags. He then uses the shadow clone technique on the weapon, creating then windmill shuriken which all explode, creating a flaming tornado. As the flaming tornado dies down, the burnt and cut up body of Sound falls to the ground. With the battle finally over, Naruto drops his kusarigama, falling to his knees before the unconscious world can take him. He's then tackled by a lavender bullet, shocking Naruto. With a small smile, simply pats the crying Temari on the back, enjoying having her back. Sure, he was exhausted and everything hurt, but having Temari here just felt right to the blonde Uzumaki. It has been 3 weeks since the day of Temari's kidnapping. The two blondes have even gotten closer, both refusing to leave each other's side. They knew with Iwagakure ninjas knowing who they are, so it won't be long before others come to take their heads. Jiraiya decided to go to the land Firefly, which is a small village. With everything they've been through, Jiraiya had decided to give the two some time off, plus both Tsunade and Sunagakure weren't happy. Well, more specifically, her siblings and sensei were livid. Each of them were impressed with Naruto not only rescuing Temari but handling far stronger ninjas. Jiraiya had went to meet up with one of his contacts while Temari and Naruto had went into town, and since there was a festival, the two decided to go, both dressing in kimono. Naruto wore a dark blue and black kimono while Temari wore a lavender. Temari seeing her in a kimono was surprising, but what really surprised him was Temari had her hair out. Naruto could only stare at shock at her natural beautiful. It seemed like even the flow from the moonlight even made her look even more beautiful to Naruto. She was the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. Beautiful, mutters Naruto, but it was perfectly clear what was said. Temari blushes a deep crimson. She smiles softly at him. Thank you, Naruto-kun, you look handsome too, said Temari. Now it was Naruto's then to blush a deep red. She then grabs hold of his hand. Come on, Naruto-kun, you're treating me to some yakisoba, said Temari. Naruto could only just smile as Temari leads him towards a food stand. Time skip. The three individuals can be seen walking towards the front gate. The two gate guards stare in shock at Jiraiya, Naruto, and Temari. The two blink in confusion. They easily recognize Jiraiya and Temari, but they didn't know who the blonde was until they saw the whiskers on the second blonde. The bandage man blinks in pure shock. Naruto, is that you? Asked the man. Azumo blinks at the grinning blonde. Holy crap. That is Naruto, exclaimed the shocked Chunin. Naruto then smirks to himself. It's about time you've notices me. Well, we better going before Ba-chan gets angry, said Naruto. All three men shudder with a nod. An enraged Tsunade was something neither wanted to see. With that, the three head into the village. Naruto smiles as he realizes the village wasn't really changed except for the fact that they now have Tsunade's face. Naruto then glances at Temari with a bright smile. How about after we meet up with Ba-chan we'll go on a date? Asked Naruto with a smile. Ever since that day at the festival, the two had become a couple and the two couldn't be any happier. Temari smiles at this, liking the idea of going on a date with Naruto in his home village. She then smirks at him. I expect you to treat me to some sweet chestnuts and kenshin soup, said a smirking Temari. Naruto smiles at this. Sure. Anything for my Mari-chan, said Naruto. He then brings her closer to him and kisses the beautiful woman in his arms. She's into the kids, wrapping her hands over his body while Naruto simply brings her in closer. NN Naruto, exclaimed a shocked Sakura. The student of Kurenai along with her was Ino, the student of Tsunade and Team Ebisu. Excluding their sensei, the two blondes pull away staring at Sakura. The blonde duo stares back at Sakura, Ino, Udon, Moegi, and Konohamaru with a blank stare, neither not sure what to say. Luckily, the eager Konohamaru runs up to the wind users with a megawatt grin. Big bro, you're back. Is this your girlfriend? Asked Konohamaru with a sly grin, wiggling his eyebrows. He turns to look at Temari and remembers this was the girl who fought Shikamaru. Naruto grins at Konohamaru with a bright smile and wrap his arm around his girlfriend. Yep. This is Temari of the Sand, exclaimed a happy Naruto. Temari smiles softly at her blonde boyfriend. If she remembered right, this kid was the grandson of the Sandaime Hokage and nephew of Asuma Sarutobi. The two watch as the young brunette's eyes sparkle with amazement. That's so awesome. Just I expected from my rival, exclaimed Konohamaru. Temari smirks at this. The kid definitely reminded her of Naruto back in his genin days. Konohamaru then grins widely. Hey bro, check out my new Y clone technique. exclaimed Konohamaru, but missed the pale Jinchuriki's face and motion for him to not do it. Unfortunately, Konohamaru didn't see the warning and transformed into a busty brunette woman with large S and large hips. She blows a wink at them. Jiraiya with a perverted grin gives the young Sarutobi a thumbs up with his nose bleeding. Naruto face palms himself. Not only did he use a perverted jutsu in the middle of the street but in front of not one but three angry women. Sakura, Ino, and Moegi each had an angry look on their faces before any of the Konoha females can reprimand the perverted Sarutobi boy. Temari bits him on the head with one of her small war fans. The blow to the head had sent the young genin face first to the ground. Jiraiya gulps at the small weapons being on the receiving end of those fans whenever he peeped on the female populist or when he tried to write them in his book. Naruto lets out a small chuckle. I've grown out of those little games, Konohamaru, said Naruto, catching them off guard, especially Ino and Sakura, since the blonde would always good off. As Konohamaru rises back to his feet rubbing his head, he was sure there was dent where Temari had hit him. He leans then looks up to his role model as Naruto pats his head. If I'm to be the next Hokage, then I can't be playing around with those silly jutsu, and besides, if you want to really see something, check this out. Grinned Naruto. He takes out 4 shuriken. He then covers them in his wind affinity. Everyone looked on with shock except for Jiraiya and Temari. They watch as the shuriken begins to rotate and hover off his palm, floating in the air and spinning with incredible. Naruto, what's that? Asked Udon, staring in shock. To him this was amazing. Sure, he may not know his affinity like Konohamaru, but the genin knew whatever jutsu this is was not easy. Naruto grins widely at genin. He can still both Konohamaru along with Moegi having their full attention. Both Konohamaru and Moegi looked on with a star-gazed expression. Wind manipulation. Pure wind manipulation, said Naruto with a grin on his face. Hey Naruto, do I look different? Asked Sakura with a small smile. Temari raised an eyebrow at the pink-haired girl. Yeah, you did. I can tell, not just you but you too, Ino, exclaimed Naruto. He can tell just by a glance they were nothing like how they were in their genin days. He knew Sakura had potential to be a powerful kunoichi. She just needed someone to bring out this potential. The same can be said about Ino. He remembers she would care more about her figure, but this Ino seems far more different, confident. Sakura smiles at this. She then chuckles nervously at the blonde duo. It definitely wasn't easy after having to prove to Tsunade I can be ninja, said Sakura. She can still remember how devastated she was when Tsunade stripped her of her rank. Naruto and Temari looked at Sakura with confusion. I'll tell you guys later, it's a long story, said the pink-eyed Naruto, and Temari nod their heads. Ino turns away from the male blonde and looks at the Tsunagaku kunoichi. She then gains a sly smile. So, you and Naruto. I honestly thought you would have ended up with Shikamaru, said Ino. After all she heard during the Sasuke retrieval mission, she along with her teammates saved Shikamaru, Rock Lee, and Kiba, plus those two would make a cute couple. He was last and she would kick him for being lazy. Temari shot the student of Tsunade's stern look. Me and the Nara? No way, I just wanted to get him back for humiliating me during the Chunin exams. Besides, he would just complain about everything, unlike Naruto-kun here, said Temari with a smile. He matches her smile with his own, smiling back at him, and then runs her hand over his whiskered face. The boy gives off a low purring sound, shocking everyone. Jiraiya, Udon, and Konohamaru's nose begins to bleed. She places a chaste kiss on his face. She then turns her attention to her sensei. Jiraiya, shouldn't we head to the Hokage Tower? You haven't sent a messenger toad for over 2 months. In sure Tsunade-sama will be real happy to hear why, asked Temari with smirk on her face. Her Jinchuriki loved snickered at the pale expression of Jiraiya. A rain cloud appears above him, muttering about vicious blondes. Temari grasps the hand of Naruto and smiles at him. He smiles back, making her cheeks flush a light pink color. The two begin walking towards the tower with Jiraiya tailing behind, then hoping Tsunade doesn't break anything important. He then shivers at a certain beatdown he got from the woman. Naruto waves lazily at them. Sakura and Ino run to follow after them. Konohamaru and his team waves at Naruto. Big bro Naruto, you're going to reach me a new jutsu, right? yelled Konohamaru with a large grin on his face. Naruto gives the young teen a big thumbs up. Naruto, train me too. I want to be strong too. Exclaimed Udon. He remembers hearing about how Naruto not only fought in the Konoha Crush but also how he fought Gaara of the Sand and beat him. That was something even the prodigy Sasuke Uchiha couldn't even manage to beat him. Udon was positive Naruto had grown even stronger, probably as strong as Konohamaru's uncle. The orange-haired teen jumps in excitement with a large grin on her blushing face. Me too. Me too. Train me too, Naruto, exclaimed Moegi with a bright smile on her face. Sure, she has learned a lot by Ebisu, but unfortunately he wasn't the strongest Junin, so there was only so much she can learn from. But with Naruto, he was not only trained by Kakashi, one of the most capable Junin in the village, but also one of the legendary Sannin. Tsunade was not happy. Why? Well, because she still hadn't heard from her perverted teammate and the endless amount of paperwork that never seems to end. And of course Shizune won't let her have a tip of her precious sake. It sure has been peaceful, hasn't it? Said Shizune, though they do get some trouble from Konohamaru. Before Tsunade could even utter a word, a knock to the door can be heard. Her eyes glances towards Shizune, who opens the door and smiles, looking at the blonde. The first thing she noticed was the lack of orange. Sure, his scarf and open shirt had orange flames on his open shirt. She then brings the young teen in a big. Tsunade smiles at the scene, happy her favorite blonde has returned. Good to have you back, Naruto, said Tsunade. Naruto smiles at her. He then snickers as her facial expression exactly shifted from happy to piss as she stares at Jiraiya. The man chuckles nervously. He then gulps loudly as she grabs him by the scuff of his shirt and glares daggers at him. Hey princess, said Jiraiya. In most cases he would use this as a chance to peek at large, but the look on her face warned him not to. Don't you? Hey, princess, me. Why the hell haven't you sent a messenger toad in over a month?